My fiancé said, "My parents don't approve of you. They think I can do better." I replied, "Then you should." That night, I transferred the lease to her name, canceled her credit card, and moved out while she slept. 1 week later, her whole family was at my doorstep, begging me to take her back. The funny thing about having your heart ripped out is how calm you can be when it happens. No screaming, no crying, just a strange, icy clarity that settles over you. I'd been with Natalie for 3 years. We met right after college at a friend's housewarming party. She was smart, beautiful, ambitious, everything I wanted. We moved in together after a year, got engaged after 2, and were planning our wedding when everything fell apart. Looking back, I should have noticed the warning signs. Natalie's parents, Richard and Caroline, were never exactly warm toward me. They were the country club type. Old money, private schools, vacation homes in the Hamptons. I came from a middle-class family in Ohio, worked my way through a state college with loans and part-time jobs, and was still building my career as an architect at a respectable but not prestigious firm. Whenever we had dinner with them, they'd ask pointed questions about my career trajectory and whether my firm had worked on any notable projects. Caroline would reminisce about Natalie's ex, who was now at some hedge fund in New York. Richard would talk about friends' sons who were doctors or executives. I always brushed it off. Plenty of people have difficult in-laws, right? And Natalie would squeeze my hand under the table, rolling her eyes whenever her parents weren't looking. I thought we were on the same team. The day everything changed was completely ordinary. A Thursday in April. I came home from work exhausted after a long client meeting. Natalie was sitting at the kitchen island, staring at her laptop. "Hey," I said, dropping my keys into the bowl by the door. "How was your day?" She didn't answer immediately, which was unusual. Natalie was always talking about work, friends, or something she'd seen on Instagram. The silence was my first clue that something was wrong. "I had lunch with my parents," she finally said, still not looking up from the screen. "How are Richard and Caroline?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light as I opened the fridge and grabbed a beer. "They're concerned about us." I paused, the bottle halfway to my lips. "Concerned how? About the wedding? About what?" She hesitated, then finally looked up. "About whether you're the right choice for me." I set the beer down untouched. "And what do you think?" "I think they want what's best for me." "That's not what I asked." She sighed and closed her laptop. "They pointed out some things I hadn't really thought about, like how your career doesn't have the same potential as someone in finance or medicine, how we'll never be able to afford the kind of life I grew up with, how we come from really different worlds." "We've known all that from day one," I said, my voice still strangely calm. "It never seemed to bother you before." It didn't. But thinking about the future, about kids someday, I don't know. They made some good points, like how you're so content where you are. You've never talked about making partner or starting your own firm. You're just comfortable being average. That stung. I'd never claimed to be exceptional, but I worked hard and took pride in my designs. I wasn't changing the world, but I was building a solid career doing something I loved. "What exactly are you saying, Natalie?" She twisted her engagement ring, the one that had cost me 3 months' salary, but that her mother had called quaint the first time she saw it. "My parents don't approve of you," she said finally. "They think I can do better." The room seemed to tilt slightly, like a ship adjusting to a wave. 3 years together, a year of engagement, countless I love yous and future plans. And it all came down to her parents' approval. "And what do you think?" I asked again, my voice very quiet now. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "I think maybe they have a point. In movies, this is where I'd plead with her, remind her of our love, promise to become worthy of her family's approval. But that icy clarity I mentioned, it hit hard." "Then you should," I said simply. "Should what?" "Do better, if that's what you and your parents think." She looked startled, as if she'd expected an argument or tears. "Ryan, I'm not saying it's over. I'm just having doubts. Doubts about whether I'm good enough for you because your parents said so. It's more complicated than that." "Is it?" Sounds pretty simple to me. I walked past her and into our bedroom, her confused expression following me. I took a shower, letting the hot water run over me while I thought through what needed to happen next. By the time I got out, I had a plan. Natalie was already in bed, scrolling through her phone as though it were any normal night. She glanced up at me. "Can we talk more about this tomorrow? I'm tired, and I think we both need to sleep on it." "Sure," I agreed easily, climbing into bed beside her. "Tomorrow." I waited until around midnight, when her breathing had slowed and deepened. Then I got up quietly, grabbed my pre-packed gym bag from the closet, and went to work. First, I logged into our apartment's tenant portal. The lease was in my name, with Natalie listed as an occupant. We'd arranged it that way, because my credit was better when we moved in. I submitted a lease modification request to the landlord, explaining that I wanted to remove myself and transfer full responsibility to Natalie. I knew it would require both her signature and the landlord's approval before it could be finalized, but initiating the process would make my intentions clear. Our landlord, Mr. Peterson, was reasonable and had always liked me. I was confident he'd work with Natalie on the transition if she chose to stay. Next, I logged into my bank account. Natalie had a credit card as an authorized user on my account. We kept our finances mostly separate, but that card was used for household expenses. I removed her as an authorized user and requested a replacement card for myself. I also made a list of every utility and service in my name: electricity, internet, streaming, accounts that would need to be transferred or canceled after giving her proper notice. Finally, I wrote a brief note explaining that I was leaving, that I'd already initiated the lease transfer process, and that I would arrange to collect the rest of my belongings later. I included that she had a month to decide whether she wanted to take over the apartment or find a new place, and that I would continue handling the utilities in the meantime to give her time to transfer them into her own name. I left the note on the kitchen counter alongside my key, then I walked out the door. Earlier that evening, while Natalie was in the shower, I'd called my friend Mark and asked if I could crash at his place for a few days. He agreed, without asking any questions. The mark of a true friend. When I arrived at Mark's apartment at 1:00 a.m., he answered the door in his boxers, looking tired but concerned. "You okay, man?" "Not really," I said honestly, "but I will be." Over beers on his couch, I explained everything. To his credit, Mark didn't try to convince me to go back or work things out. "Her loss," he said simply, clinking his bottle against mine. "You can stay as long as you need." The next morning, my phone exploded with notifications. Calls, texts, and voicemails from Natalie, each one more frantic than the last. "Where are you? Call me back right now. I can't believe you just left like that. The landlord called about a lease transfer. I can't afford this place alone on my salary. You canceled the credit card. How am I supposed to pay for groceries?" That last text was particularly ironic. Despite her family's wealth, Natalie insisted on being financially independent, which in reality meant living on the modest salary from her entry-level publishing job while her parents covered her student loans, made her car payments, and maintained a generous emergency fund she rarely touched. It was a source of pride for her, but one that had left her unprepared for genuine independence. I didn't respond to any of her messages. Instead, I called my boss and explained that I needed a few personal days. Then I spent the next week apartment hunting, eventually finding a small but decent one-bedroom across town that I could move into the following week. The rent was higher than my share of the old apartment, but I could manage it with the bonuses from my recent projects. Over the next several days, I methodically rebuilt my life. I stayed at Mark's apartment, sleeping on his couch while gradually gathering the essentials for my new place. I updated my address everywhere. Since I still legally had access to our old apartment until the lease situation was resolved, I arranged for a moving company to collect my furniture and larger belongings on a day I knew Natalie would be at work. Mark agreed to meet them there with the spare key I still had, supervising the move to make sure they only took the items we'd already agreed belonged to me. I also ordered the basics I would need immediately in the new apartment: bedding, kitchenware, toiletries, and had everything delivered to Mark's place. By the time my new apartment was ready the following week, I had a clear plan for a smooth transition. Natalie's messages kept coming, gradually shifting from anger to pleading. "Please talk to me. We can work this out." I didn't mean what I said. I was just stressed about wedding planning. My parents were wrong. I know that now. On the 5th day, I finally responded with a single text. I'll be collecting the rest of my things next week. The utilities are paid through the end of the month, giving you time to transfer them into your name if you're staying. Please let me know a time when you won't be home so I can finish moving out. Her reply came immediately. Please don't do this. I love you. Too little, too late. On the 6th day, I received a surprising call from Richard, Natalie's father. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Ryan, he said, his usual haughty tone replaced by something almost humble. We need to talk. I don't think we have anything to discuss, Richard. Please. Natalie she's not doing well. That's unfortunate, but it's not my problem anymore. He let out a heavy sigh. I may have overstepped, said some things I shouldn't have. You think? Can we meet? Caroline and I would like to speak with you in person. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet them for coffee the next day. Pure curiosity, I told myself. Nothing more. When I arrived at the cafe, I was surprised to find not only Richard and Caroline there, but Natalie and her younger brother as well. The entire family had shown up. What's this? I asked, remaining standing beside the table. Please sit, Caroline said, her normally flawless composure showing signs of strain. We want to talk to you. I sat down reluctantly, choosing a seat as far from Natalie as possible. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and her usually immaculate appearance was noticeably disheveled. Richard cleared his throat. Ryan, I owe you an apology. What I said to Natalie about you was unfair and short-sighted. You think? I repeated. Yes, he continued. The past week has made it abundantly clear that you were far better for Natalie than we ever gave you credit for. How so? Caroline jumped in. Natalie has been absolutely devastated. We've never seen her like this. She's not eating, not sleeping. She truly loves you. I looked at Natalie. She was staring down at the table while tears silently rolled down her cheeks. And it turns out, Richard continued, visibly uncomfortable, that Natalie wasn't entirely forthcoming with us about your career. Her brother looked you up. I'm a big architecture nerd, her brother interjected. When I actually Googled your name, I found your portfolio. You worked on the Westbrook Tower. That's incredible. And you're listed as lead designer on the new Riverside development. Dude, that's major. I shrugged. I've been doing well at the firm. Why didn't you tell us? Caroline asked. Because it shouldn't matter, I replied simply. I'm an architect because I love design, not because I want to impress my fiance's parents. Richard had the decency to look ashamed. We were wrong about you, and wrong to put those doubts in Natalie's head. You didn't put anything in her head that she didn't allow, I countered. She's an adult who made her choice. I made the wrong choice, Natalie finally said, her voice breaking. I was stupid and insecure and let them get to me. I've regretted it every second since you left. We're here, Richard said, to ask you to reconsider, to give Natalie another chance. I looked around the table at all of them. This family had judged me, decided I wasn't good enough, and was now desperately trying to reverse course. Why the change of heart, Richard? Because it turns out I might be successful after all? No, he said, though his eyes briefly shifted away. Because I've never seen my daughter this heartbroken. Whatever you think of me, I do love her. The truth was, I'd never really talked about my career accomplishments with Natalie or her family. Not because I was hiding them, but because I didn't define myself by my professional achievements. The Riverside development had been a breakthrough project, one I'd spent months working long hours on. Most nights, I'd come home too exhausted to discuss the details. Natalie had always seemed more interested in talking about her publishing world anyway, and I'd been perfectly content to listen rather than talk about my own progress. Please, Ryan. Natalie reached across the table for my hand. I pulled away before she could touch me. I was wrong. So wrong. I love you. Not what you do or what you earn. But you didn't defend me, I said quietly. When they said I wasn't good enough, you agreed. I was confused. Stressed about the wedding. Having cold feet. It wasn't about you. It was about me being scared. And now, you're scared of paying rent on your own. She flinched. That's not fair, isn't it? You didn't contact me until you realized I'd transferred the lease and canceled your card. The practical issues just made me realize how much I depend on you, she argued. How much I need you. I don't want to be needed. I want to be chosen. I stood up, and you chose your parents' approval over me. Ryan, Caroline interjected. People make mistakes. Natalie made a mistake. We made a mistake. Surely that deserves forgiveness. I looked at all of them, a family closing ranks to fix the problem they had created. And I felt nothing. That icy clarity was still there, protecting me. I wish you all the best, I said, turning to leave. Wait. Natalie stood up, drawing curious glances from other people in the cafe. I'll do anything. I'll move into your new place. I'll pay my own way. I'll cut off my parents if that's what it takes. Her parents looked alarmed by the suggestion, which told me everything I needed to know about how genuine their change of heart really was. It's not about any of that, I told her. It's about the fact that you showed me who you really are. Someone who values status and other people's opinions more than loyalty and love. I believe you now. I walked out, ignoring her calls behind me. That was 6 months ago. I haven't spoken to Natalie since, though she still sends the occasional text. Her parents mailed me an expensive bottle of scotch with a note of apology, which I contributed to Mark's birthday party. The Riverside development I designed opened last month to positive reviews. As a result, my firm promoted me to junior partner and gave me a substantial raise. I bought a condo in the building. Small, but mine. Sometimes I wonder whether I was too harsh, too unforgiving. But then I remember how easily she wavered, how quickly she accepted her parents' judgment of my worth. Some betrayals cut too deep to heal. The right person won't need to be convinced that you're enough. They'll already know it, and they'll defend that belief against anyone, even their own family. I'm still looking for that person, but at least now I know what I'm looking for, and what I'm no longer willing to accept.